Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Live at the Waterhole. We're first up, we're in the wonderful Madikwe Game Reserve in the northwest province of South Africa at the wonderful Jamala Lodge. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, once again, you'll have to sit back, relax, and watch as the animals come down for a drink and quench their thirsts. And as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience, so we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. You can do that by going on the Wild Earth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag Wild Earth as it appears on your screen. What is it that you'd like to see? What would you like to chat about? Whatever it is, wildlife related, send it on through. What a lovely start this is. First time, I think, for me, seeing eland at this Jamala waterhole. I might have seen one or two randomly, but this is a lovely little herd that's come in and obviously being chased around by one of the young bulls. Lots of elephants around too. It looks like another balmy winter's day. Yesterday was lovely as well, and we also had lots of elephant activity as a result. So I think today will always be different, but maybe similar in that lots of animals come down for a drink. You can see, obviously, the very prominent dewlap on the eland. They are a water, sort of more independent animal living in more arid conditions, so don't need to drink as much as a lot of the other animals around here. And that dewlap, also assisting with thermoregulation because of the areas that they live in, helps to keep them cool. And Joanne Mello already on board with us, saying good Wednesday, Wild Earth. Good Wednesday straight back at you, Joanne. Lovely to have you on board. Looks to be lots of elephants dotted around in the thickets as well. Not only these ones right next to the water. And at their favorite drinking spot, where the fresh water comes out. I wonder if there's some being pumped in today. And Mercedes Bean also on board again. So greetings, Ralph, Wild Earth crew and chatters. Happy Wednesday. Yeah, happy Wednesday to all of you as well. Sandy saying great Ralph is here and happy to be here on this fabulous Wednesday. Well, look how great it seems. Doesn't seem to be a breath of wind here in Madikwe, and the elephants enjoying their time at this wonderful waterhole. Of course, as always, you see the young bulls having a little bit of argy-bargy between them, a bit of sparring sessions and wrestling. It's all part and parcel of a bull's life. So Nina asking, how would you separate different herds? So generally, Nina, they will stick together a little bit more, but for the time being, it's a little bit difficult to tell because sometimes when they come to the waterhole and they spend some time there, they may mill about and spread around a bit, but we'll know for sure when they start to head off and they all group up and follow the matriarch. Not always her leading, walking in front, but she will be the guide per se. And just like us as humans, it's not always the person in front that's calling the shots. So sometimes that happens, and we can't always assume the one walking in front as a result would be the matriarch. But we can definitely tell the sort of group dynamics. It looks like there's a potential herd on the left-hand side. They seem to be quite bunched up together with lots of the little youngsters. And then maybe another one here that's drinking in the middle of the screen. Some of the bulls, they might be part of any of the herds. They like to mingle around and wrestle with each other. So once again, you'll notice when the herds move off, then if the younger bulls are still following in with the herd, you'll see which one they're a part of as well. Sometimes they stick around at the waterhole too, so you're not quite sure. It's in that period when they're starting to leave the herd, and so spend less and less time with them. We can see what happens now. Maybe the one group has lost patience and they want to come into the drinking site. You see there's a little bit of consternation between them. So I think it is potentially two different herds that are meeting up here now. So Tracy is asking, what happens when a matriarch dies? So the leader of the breeding herds, normally the oldest and more experienced of the group. So they do have a bit of a hierarchy within that group, the eldest and the most experienced, and going down from there. So if a matriarch dies, it would be the next in line as part of that hierarchy. So it's not just one leader and everybody else are subordinates. It's that there's almost a leadership group, and they're constantly sharing information as part of that group and with the leadership structure of the females. And so matriarch passes, it will be the next in line and the next experienced, and normally of the next oldest as well. So, and then a nice comment coming in from Georgie Henry saying, hi from Georgie and Jeremy. And we are watching from Camberley in Surrey in England. Welcome aboard. And I hope you're having a lovely, is it summer there now? It's just gone out of spring. So maybe I hope you're having a lovely day, just like we are here. And Caitlin Boss saying, hello, Ralph and Wild Earth crew. Thanks for making this show possible. Well, it's also you, the viewer, that engages with us and watches Wild Earth that keeps the show going as well. So it's a team effort. And thanks for joining us and commenting. There's just so much going on between them. You almost don't know where to look. There's a couple of youngsters having an interaction. Also, probably young bulls already starting to show that kind of behavior. And some of the adults also having a bit of engagement. And as I say, I'm pretty sure this is two groups meeting up. So almost like two families on holiday at the swimming pool. And they're all coming together to greet each other. And nice to play with some other kids. And that's probably what's also going on between the youngsters. One of those youngsters now having a roll around in the dirt, as you do. Now it's time to pile on. That looks like lots of fun. So this one got its tusks starting to come out. I would guess that at around about 3, maybe 4 at the most. I would go more so for around 3. They start to get their tusks at around 2 years of age. There's one a little bit further back that seems to just have started them, a couple of them actually. So, you can judge just over 2 years or so, and then as they grow, you can sort of add on the years. One of the small little youngsters now getting a chance to get in there in that freshwater zone, maybe have a drink. There's not much stress around, so I would imagine that there's no bulls in must in the immediate area, because that's when you generally have a lot more stress within the groups. As I was just about to say, very peaceful. One of the younger bulls has a go at another one. Nothing serious. So this could be another arriving group here. I think there's a few herds, and as I say, I think we'll only really be able to tell once they start to move off. So Sandy was saying, as I see some ellies wandering off, do they go far with only 3 elephants in the group? Sometimes they can, Sandy. They don't generally wander off too far from the same breeding herd. But sometimes you can also have splinter groups. That would break off from a bigger herd. There's potentially 2 similar aged females with similar experience, and maybe they don't really see eye to eye on all the decisions made for the herd. So you can have a breakaway, and she'll maybe take 1 or 2 individuals with her, or that are her offspring. And slowly but surely that group could then grow, and that's how you would have more populations within the herds. They don't sort of get much bigger than around a big herd would be around 30, but generally it's about half of that. So once they start to get bigger, then you've got a few big personalities within that group, and you can obviously see the reasons why they could splinter off and start then their own herd. Sometimes it's just too many chiefs and not enough Indians, So they can then split off, but who's to say they didn't just wander off to go and see maybe a food source? They've had a drink and they'll return before the group leaves. It's every situation pretty much is individual. You wouldn't be able to judge, but you can have breakaways. You can also have just individual behavior on any given day. Now, Sultan Shakir was saying the camera makes them seem so small. How big are they? They're a lot bigger than they look, Sultan Shakir. That I can tell you. This is up on a post, on a pole. And so looking down on them, hopefully we'll get to see some elephants at where the cameras have a much different perspective, almost from ground level, so looking up at them, and then they look huge. But they're not much bigger than these. Some of the spots, they may be bigger, they might be the same size. The camera in Kenya at Old Donyo is one of those, very close to the waterhole and also almost at ground level. And then there's the cat eye that's in the Greater Kruger, also similar perspective, but a little bit further away from the waterhole, so they don't seem as big. So it's all about angles here. And we often say to guests when we're out on the vehicle, which is also pretty high in the game viewers, and you sometimes are looking down at the animals and you don't realize how big they are. Once you get on foot and see them from that perspective, they seem a lot bigger, and that's the reality. Some more youngsters there rolling around in the dust. Looks like one's tusking the ground. And now it's just gone flat out. Bit of dust bathing going on here on the left. That individual was kicking the dirt with its foot, loosening it up, making it a nice fine powder, then get that in behind the ears. Oh, there's a buffalo there. I think he's going to get chased off by that little one. He could probably sort that elephant out, but he's got the backing of all these elephants here. That's very interesting. Very brave. No, it's not I thought it was a buffalo. It's a wildebeest. That's probably why I did it. Oh, he's having another go at him. He's probably going to run back to mom now. Wow, so what a fantastic start here at Jamala. I don't think these elephants are going to be going anywhere anytime soon, but I think it's time to change of place, and let's head to their namesake in the Greater Kruger Park and Olifants River. This beautiful river scene, the Olifants River. There's a female waterbuck. Looks like she's going to cross. Always on the lookout for predators, and of course there are crocodiles, lots of them in this river, so need to be very careful. See, she's also just stopping and looking, I'm sure, in the water. Just because once the crocodiles start moving and they'll be able to see that V, she's not quite happy. Something has made her think it's not safe. You should be right in thinking that. These are crocodile-infested waters. It seems the mission is aborted. She wasn't sure, didn't feel safe, and so turned around. So Mindy Tillapore saying that she certainly wouldn't cross alone. Maybe she'll give it another go now. There's a bit of safety in numbers. Maybe just going to feed on the bank. Power snack for the potential attempt or reattempt at the crossing. It looks like there's a little wagtail just running along the shoreline there. Not sure if it's a cape or a pied wagtail. I suppose it also does give some sense of security with the waterbuck being here in the riverbed, because they could tell if there's a predator coming from behind from quite a distance, and so they don't need to worry about as many fronts as if they were in the bush worrying about all round themselves. They've almost got a back now that they can easily see the predators coming. So it might be a little bit more a reason why they come out into the open like this and like being in the water areas. It's obviously just the crocodiles that need to be careful of too. Looks like they might be gathering potential for another crossing. Come on, girls. that a bit of egging on? Saying, come on, let's go. So they're not quite sure. I think they're thinking about it, but they seem to be leaning towards not. And Edna was asking, do they usually travel alone? So Edna, they can have these small little breeding herds, and bigger than that. You don't really see massive herds of waterbuck. So it's normally small little groups that move around, and then of course territorial bulls. But this isn't an uncommon sight. You'll often see three to five just moving together. But this bigger female seems to be having an issue with the younger one. Luckily, they don't have horns, so they're pretty much just headbutting each other. Won't do any real damage. And a lovely message come in from Izzy saying, could we please say hi to my grandma, Sandra? Please, she loves watching and she doesn't like the scary crocs though. And they're after her cute animals. Well, hello, Grandma Sandra, and lovely to have you on board. I hope you're enjoying the show. We'll hope that there's no nasty crocodiles about. But that's the ways of the wild. If I think it's going to happen, I will tell you to look away. So, of course, with waterbuck, as the name suggests, they do like spending a lot of time around the water, and they're extremely water dependent as well. So you don't generally see waterbuck very far from a permanent water source, and they're often known to evade predators by running into the water, as predatory cats, such as lions and leopard, as well as wild dogs, are quite reluctant to go into deep water. And getting themselves wet, even sometimes if it means missing out on the meal. Watching something over on the other side, but as you can see, they also have a lot of hair around their necks, and it does make them look as if they should be living in much colder climates. But the real functionality behind this hair is that it's hollow. And because it's hollow, it allows for extra buoyancy when they swim, and also help the waterbuck to keep their heads above the water as a result. So, but as we know, water can become saturated. So if this was the case, then the waterbuck hollow hair would actually do the exact opposite of that function and probably make them sink. But to stop that saturation and keep them functioning and the functionality of the hollowness, they release a special oil over the hair, which then repels the water and keeps the hair dry and also hollow, and so maintains that buoyancy. But that exact oil, it's got quite a foul smell. It's very musky. I would liken it. Sometimes I've confused or gotten a fright because I've smelt waterbuck and thought elephant bull in must. But then I've checked the tracks and obviously worked it out pretty quickly. But that confusion or that smell is relatively similar. But that foul smell used to lead people to believe that it's distasteful to, the meat is tarnished. And so the animals and predators would not feed on them. But this has been disproved by many experiences, mine included. I've seen lions on waterbuck and not seemingly, in disgust when they're feeding on the meat, and also flattening the carcasses. And I've seen a number of kills on them. So I think that's a bit of a fallacy. They do have that oil gland that I think if burst, and the oil over the meat, it could have a bit of a distaste. But otherwise, it doesn't seem to bother the animals at all. There's actually another theory that the oil is not only used for the buoyancy and for water repellent, is that it also is relative insect repellent as well. So it does help to minimize the number of ticks on them, which would be an added benefit of that particular oil. So Joanne Mello is saying the river doesn't look too deep for a croc to hide. I think it is very shallow, but I think there are deeper portions, and that's where the crocodiles will hide, especially when it's sort of the pool is created as a result of an obstacle, like a rock or whatever, and then you'll have these backwaters, but with deeper water behind it too. So they sort of wait in those backwaters where the current actually flows upstream, and so they don't need to work to stay in one spot. And right next to it is where the potential prey in the likes of fish, frogs, but generally catfish, would come down the river almost as, they're waiting right there, and they dart out and grab it and then go back to that little backwater pool once more. So there are deeper spots, and obviously the waterbuck wouldn't know exactly where they are, but further on the right-hand side of the river, as we're looking upstream from this position, would be where there is some deeper patches, which I would also be nervous of going through. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on these waterbuck and see if they attempt the crossing again. Hopefully no crocodiles about. But in the meantime, let's go to Kenya and that different perspective camera at Oldonyo. Well, fantastic. This looks to be 1 ton. The big tusker elephant bull, right on time. Perfect. What a wonderful sighting. This is one of the great elephant bulls on earth currently. What a privilege. Those tusks are huge. Just imagine the weight that he'd be carrying around every day. That it would make him, that neck of his, extremely strong. That's just crazy. What a beast. Very humbling seeing this. So impressive. It's almost like a living dinosaur. It's incredible. He's twisting his trunk around quite a lot. Maybe he's trying to clean out his nasal cavities. Another one coming in to join. Nothing near the size of the tusks. Seems to be a bit of a younger bull. It's always incredible to see big tusker elephants. Obviously, their genetic line has been persecuted for their ivory over the last couple of 100 years. And so for them to have still survived that is quite incredible. And the longer this bull stays alive, for instance, the more opportunity and chance that there is for more of his genetic line to continue, and with him covering more females. So long may it continue. And I do believe that I'm just trying to get some factual evidence, but I think he's in his early 50s or thereabouts. So if he's looked after and he doesn't fall foul to poachers, he's still potentially got another 10 years or so in him. just wow. How amazing was that? I didn't want to say anything to spoil the experience, but that was something else. Looks like it's a little bit, I mean, there's not many clouds about, but I think it's a bit hazy because of the heat. So you just can't make out Mount Kilimanjaro. I think we would have early this morning, potentially, and maybe later on this afternoon, as the sun dips. Should be able to make it out then. So now that it's gone a bit quiet here, I think we'll move off, but we're definitely going to keep an eye. But let's go back to the Madikwe Game Reserve, but this time to Tau. With lots more elephants. Seems Tau is now trying to compete with Jamala. And I'd just like to mention that there is now very exciting news coming from Wild Earth, which will be relaunching our live safaris on the People's Weather, which is channel 115 on Open View, and that'll be from the 1st of June. You can make sure not to miss out and buy an Open View decoder for 700 Rand with no monthly costs. The Sunrise Safari on Wednesday to Sunday is from 6:30 on Safari, Friday to Sunday 2:30 in the afternoon, and Sunset Safari Friday to Sunday from 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's all Central African time. Now, I found a little bit of information on 1 ton that I'd love to share with you. And this is from Discover Africa, which is wildlife and safaris. And they say that the magnificent 1 ton reigns in the Chulu region, that's along the Amboseli-Tsavo corridor, in the larger Amboseli-Tsavo ecosystem. And he's one of the big super tuskers Kenya has had over the years. He's a famously chilled elephant and is enjoyed and photographed by safari enthusiasts who come to see him from all over the world. Tuskers are a rarity in Kenya, as their massive ivory and impressive size have historically put them in the crosshairs of hunters and poachers. But we're privileged to enjoy regular visits from 1 ton at the Oldonyo Lodge, which is always a highlight for me. I don't know about you, but that today was probably one of the most awesome sightings I've ever had. But they do continue, and they say that 1 ton's calm demeanor belies a celebrity status as one of Africa's dwindling super tuskers, and it's hard not to be moved by an encounter with this special elephant. He's always monitored by Big Life Foundation rangers who keep constant tabs on his whereabouts. But 1 ton was, when he was born, is still not yet known, and they are still trying to work it out. But I think that may have changed in the interim, but I'm guessing at early 50s. And Megaman in the UK saying, Ralph, you wonder if such long tusks could be more of a hindrance than an asset. I think potentially, Megaman. But, sometimes it's not the guy with the most muscles that is the strongest. The reason I say that is because within the groups of the elephants, they'll also probably respect him for the size of his tusks and just how big and strong he looks, and not necessarily then have to put much energy into actually fighting, because I think his presence just does it for him. So in that sense, I think it could help. But I think carrying them around the whole time would definitely make you strong, but also tired. So maybe as he ages, he'll be seen resting more with his head, or his tusks on the ground. So I think eventually it will be a hindrance for him. But for now, maybe it's more of an advantage. So, Asbo, welcome aboard once more. Saying good afternoon, Ralph. Most mammals are quadrupeds. So, how common is bipedalism in the animal world? Obviously, talking about how many legs they have and also how many they walk on. So, bipedal would be 2 legs or walking on 2 legs. A lot of birds, obviously. But within the mammals, we do have, there's a few animals that are capable of walking on 2 legs. We see monkeys doing it, baboons doing it, but traditionally would be quadrupeds as well. So actually, besides humans, no other mammal, and that includes the primates, regularly walk on 2 legs. Some lizards as well, especially at high speed, would also, be considered bipedal in those running gaits. But generally, it's only us as mammals, and then obviously the birds as well. I think we could also say kangaroos. So maybe I was short to say that it's only humans, because kangaroos, we also look at spring hares, as the rodents. Pangolins, they also walk on their back legs. Aardvark don't; they walk on all 4. So quadrupeds. Yeah, forgetting about the pangolins, definitely, and the kangaroos. I think sometimes scrub hares. So Mindy Tillapore saying, every time I tune into the stream, I'm always amazed and grateful that through the magic of technology, we get to see these animals undisturbed going about their lives. It is a very interesting but wonderful concept to be able to do this. And I think that the best for me, or the best aspect of it, is that the animals have absolutely no idea that we're watching them. So this is, you couldn't get more natural than this. When you're out on foot, you have a real presence, especially your smell, and so the animals react to this massively. And so it's almost impossible to get into the bush without having an effect on the animal's natural behavior and what they would be doing if you weren't there. As well as with the vehicle, they can hear you, smell you, and they react accordingly, whether they're relaxed or not, or they pretend not to act as if they know you're there, but they do. And it might be slightly different if you weren't there. So in this case, though, they don't even know that we're watching. They know nothing about us whatsoever. Although, just having said that, and this the female elephant's got her trunk sucking straight in our direction, almost as if she's trying to prove me wrong. We've had at one or two of the cameras. Obviously, when the camera moves, it just makes a bit of a zinging noise, and so there is some sort of curiosity sometimes towards that, but I think it's not much at all, and only on those very specific moments when the animals are so close to the camera that they can actually hear it and see it move. So, seeing as we were going through what bipedalism is and which animals would fall into that category, I'd like to also just explore the advantages of this kind of gait, or the way, or how many legs you use for locomotion, um, because limited and exclusive bipedalism can offer a species several advantages. It raises the head, and this allows a greater field of vision with improved detection of distant dangers or resources. It's access to deeper water for wading animals and allows the animals to reach higher food sources with their mouths. While upright, the non-locomotory limbs become free for other uses as well, including manipulation in primates and rodents, flight in birds, digging, with the likes of a pangolin, combat in bears, great apes, and large monitor lizards, or camouflage. The maximum bipedal speed appears slower than the maximum speed of quadrupedal movement with a flexible backbone. Both the ostrich and the red kangaroo can reach speeds of up to 70 kilometers an hour, while the cheetah can exceed 100 kilometers an hour. So even though bipedalism is slower at first, over long distances, it's allowed humans to outrun most other animals according to endurance running hypothesis. Bipedality in karoo rats has been hypothesized to improve locomotive performance, which could aid in escaping from predators. I think that's quite interesting. There's quite a number of advantages of being bipedal. There's one of the resident spurwing goose. There's the crocodile lying there just in the grass. One of the crocodiles. With the teals and the black-winged stilts mulling about. Interesting scales all the way along the body. Very much helping for hydrodynamics, as well as their mating rituals. They spray the water up into the air in a kind of dance with the water, with the aid of these very particularly shaped scales on their backs. So Joanne Mello was asking, what animal would I like to see but haven't yet? Definitely one has to be, I know that it's not an African animal, but a polar bear. Never seen one, as well as tigers, being the largest cats of all. I'd love to compare them to a lion. I can't remember if I may have seen one in a zoo, but for me that generally doesn't count unless I've seen it in the wild. So polar bear, tiger. I'm trying to think of an African animal that I haven't seen that I want to, and I haven't thought of one yet. I'll let you know when I do. So really just relaxing about for now. I think just having a rest. A lot of the animals take this time of the day to do just that. It's the hottest part of the day, and I think now in winter it's actually quite nice. It's a very comfortable temperature, sort of mid to upper 20s in the middle of the afternoon, but then it dips off quite dramatically going into the night and gets quite cold. So we often get out in the sun on these nice clear winter days and just do exactly this, or just mill about. It's lovely because it cools off so quickly. You almost just want to warm yourself up nicely as well. But generally this time of day, when the animals all take their respite, and then when it's more energy efficient, when it's cooler, to be active. So Joanne Mello saying Alaska, one of the prettiest of our states, and one of the places I would love to go in the world. I think that wilderness totally different to what I'm used to in more arid desert conditions and tropical. Never really been into the wildernesses of colder areas. I've been in the Alps and enjoyed Mont Blanc and all of those areas in the snow and the ice, and but never really into full wilderness like in Alaska. So I'd love to go there too. Polar bears, number one. Also, cheetah, number two. Yeah, cheetah is definitely a special animal, I would say. Leopards, high up there on a lot of people's wish list. Very iconic animals. And I've spent lots of time with cheetah as well. So would love to show you cheetah on the Amakhala Game Reserve if you would like to come and see Joanne Mello, as we'll be doing that in December, and I'll be hosting a private safari on Amakhala. So come and discover the heart of South Africa and one of the most underrated parts as well, with amazing wildlife experiences, beautiful landscapes. Makes for a wonderful safari. So if you'd like to find out more, you can go on the Wild Earth website and click on travel. That's on the Amakhala Game Reserve with me in the beginning of December this year. So Sandy was asking, are there many animals who sleep standing up in Africa? Sandy, you've almost got to think, I think more so, especially the animals that don't go into burrows or into nests. Which animals don't sleep standing up? I think it's mainly the predators that don't lie down, but all the prey species, especially when there's high concentrations of predators, in the adult years are all able to, pretty much all, are able to sleep standing up. So you don't really, like in these parts, very unusual to see the likes of giraffe even sitting down, and that goes for the rest of the animals as well. But when you go to game reserves where they don't have high concentrations of predators, or none at all, big large predators like lions, especially for giraffe, you'll see them sitting down a lot and sleeping, where it's just as a result of that predator pressure that they don't sit down. It takes them too long to get up. It would be easy prey for lions, a lying down giraffe. So they just don't do it, and sleep standing up. And it's generally a lot in the middle of the day, like now. So you'll see them ruminating, standing up, but also having a sleep at the same time. I think they're able to stand and ruminate and sleep all at the same time. And they just about do it every single day. The likes of elephant as well, they will sleep standing up. They sometimes lean against a tree. They sometimes will also lie down, but they can do all of that. And I've seen them do all of that. So they prefer a bit of a slope, like on a dry river bank or so. The big adults, babies will sleep just about anywhere, even out here on the grass. So I think as they get heavier, I think there is a degree of their body weight being a little bit heavy and pressing on their lungs. So I think it might be a little bit difficult for them eventually to breathe, but it doesn't stop them from doing it. I've seen elephants sleeping on this side for over an hour. So it's definitely possible in my own experience, regardless of what any paperwork says. I've witnessed it. So I've seen also elephants sleeping in the bush, just in the middle of the bush like this, on many different game reserves. So not only in one spot where it may be special with those elephants in particular, having traveled around to so many game reserves that, you start to pick up patterns. And sometimes there's studies done on animals in specific areas, and sort of classed in as a generality for elephants. Whereas if you move around, you'll see that it's not always like that, and elephants adapt to their environment, and are individuals, and wherever they're located will have specific traits, and from specific genetics as well, whatever it might be. But you can also see patterns between them as well, of course. So it's always interesting and I think important to not generalize on specific populations of elephants, to get more of a broader picture of them, or any other species for that matter, within their distribution range. But then if we also take it back and we say which animals do sleep lying down on a permanent basis, or, generally more so than standing up, you've got all those burrowing animals, so the likes of, and as I said, the predators, they all sleep lying down. Some go up in trees, like the leopards, but mainly just on the ground. Wild dogs, lions, cheetah. Cheetah sometimes in trees, but it's not the norm. And then you've got the smaller mammals that go into even warrens and burrows. Definitely they would sleep lying down. All the birds mainly in a nest, so and perching. So you could say that on most cases with birds, actually, except when they're chicks, they all sleep standing up. They're all perched either on a branch or just standing in the water, or probably, I think, nesting birds, maybe not, inside the nest, sort of sitting down. But yeah, it's not the norm for all birds, if we can say that. So like ducks, wading birds, geese, etc., they sometimes just bob on the water and sleep with their heads turned towards their rump. Here we see wildebeest lying down, ruminating, but they also do stand up and sleep as well. So they do a bit of both. Zebra too. I think it's a little bit more comfortable for ruminants to lie down than it is for hindgut fermenters. I think with them being a bit more bloated, like the zebra and the elephants, I don't think it's as comfortable as the ruminants who aren't that gassy and bloated as the hindgut fermenters. And so maybe I'm just speculating, but it seems to me like the ruminants it's easier for them to lie down and to rest and sleep like that. And maybe it's got something to do with that, with the amount of gas and bloatedness of the hindgut fermenters. So Bill the Bull on board with us once again. Lovely to have you, and saying hi, FC and Ralph. Much enjoying the show today. Glad you are, Bill, and I hope you were around to see 1 ton, because that was a really special sighting, and I hope you didn't miss it. There's a little pearl-spotted owlet calling in the background. But like I've said before, unless it's one of those nasty mimickers like the fork-tailed drongos or the chorister robins. Could be any of the three. You can also hear the red-billed buffalo weavers. You can spot batis. There's maybe a croaking cisticola. Now, Sandy says, I got urinated on by a lion in a zoo, but was neat to see them up close. And I'll never be able to see this close up and appreciate this so much. Well, glad you're enjoying the show, Sandy. Not so glad you got urinated on by a lion. I'm sure it's not the best experience. It does remind me, though, I had a very random dream that, I think it was last night, that for some reason I was following a leopard around the outside of my house that was jumping about, and he didn't know that I was there. So I was keeping, sort of around the corners, but he was marking on my chimney and on certain parts of the wall, and I kept on getting sprayed by his urine. So it's quite a coincidence, and totally random on my part, that I was getting sprayed by a big tomcat leopard. And that's all it was. The dream never went into him either spotting me or anything else. That was it. Very strange. Maybe I haven't seen a leopard in person for too long, and I'm just being drawn back to the bush. And even in my sleep, I could smell that popcorn, freshly popped popcorn with melted butter. That is the exact smell of leopard urine. And you can often smell it when either walking or driving through the bush, and it's a very good indicator for us as guides and trackers that we've either missed that there's a leopard nearby, or we are very close to the leopard. So it's an excellent indicator, and one of those that you'll never forget once you've smelt it. It's actually amazing sometimes walking through the bush, and these certain triggers that once you've smelt them and you know what that smell is, sort of can either put the fear of God in you, or it could make you be very excited, because either you've stumbled across something very closely and it's right there, or you've sort of had success on your tracking mission. And the smell of an elephant bull in must, and that urine dribbles on the road, the smell of popcorn for being close to leopard. These are a couple of those examples that gets you excited or scared. Another one is the hyena pasting smell. But there's a couple of different ones. So brown hyena anal pasting. They normally sort of straddle a nice long grass stalk, and then expertly place these little oily secretions, very intricate marking, olfactory markings they are, and so there's quite a few animals that do it. The brown hyena, spotted hyena, the mongooses all do it. Civets, I would say, is probably the smelliest of the lot, and that means a lot if it's smellier than a brown hyena, because those are pretty pungent, very strong. But a civet pasting is something, and it went so far as to them even using that in perfumes, in what makes or the compound that makes the smells linger longer. Back in the day, I think they artificially produce it now through chemicals. But the true perfumes and the originals, they all came with fluid from the anal pasting of a civet. But I used to often have students that would always, and a lot of guests, there seems to be half and half of people that are able to smell these particular pastings and half that can't. And till this day, I'm still confused as to if it's something to do with blood type, because girls and boys, male and female, both sides, a mix. It's random as to who can smell those pastings. It's very strong if you can, and you can smell them from meters away. And others that can't smell it at all, even if you wipe it on their nose, which I've done. With consent, yes. But, if you had to do that to me, I wouldn't be able to stop smelling that smell for a week. You just can't get rid of it. So Joanne Mello asking, what is the smelliest animal? And people say wild dog is. Joanne, wild dogs are pretty smelly, but I think I've smelt worse brown hyenas. Yeah, some of the smelliest I've ever smelt. But other than that, lions can also stink, especially when they've been on a carcass. But I think waterbuck are pretty smelly as well. You can smell them if they've crossed the road in front of you and you sort of drive through that line. It's very strong. And also elephant bulls in must, that is a very strong smell. But the actual animal itself, I'm putting my money on a brown hyena. So Robert4217 was asking, if a lion dies, do the other lions mourn its passing like other animals before the hyenas eat the carcass? So, Robert, I would have to say that I think it depends on which lion dies. If it's a male lion, there's not really much love lost for, unless it's a cub. I think there is a small amount of mourning. I think it occurs a little bit more so in the likes of leopard, who I think, my personal opinion, are quite a bit more intelligent than lions, who I think are slightly more instinctive, and don't sort of delve too far, or whether it's capability or not, into emotions. But I think it's just part of their cycle, their life cycle, in where they are in that cycle. A mother with cubs, I think there's definitely mourning there. When they're part of the team, I don't know if it's the actual mourning for the individual or for the lack of the team member, who then is obviously no longer there, and the group is then weaker as a result. So, and that would go between males and within a pride. Whether there's a coalition of 4 and one gets killed, I don't think the 3 of them are going to worry too much about that individual, more so than their current situation of being one down. That's my personal opinion, and I think there is a lot less emotion with the animals. But I think it actually makes it easier for them, to be fair. So I think if I had to conclude, I would say that the lions wouldn't mourn for very long, if at all. If one of their members passes, I think they'll fight to try and help it not die. If it was being attacked or whatever. But if it was sick, you very often see that, in predators especially, that if there's something wrong with the animal, that an individual within their group, they'll either leave it and sometimes even attack it and kill it, because it's acting strangely. It's obviously I'm not quite sure on that killer instinct when one of the members of the pride or the pack becomes sick or shows signs of injury, and then they kill it. Almost a natural response to put it out of its misery. But it almost clicks a predator response, which is quite strange for me, as it is part of the family, part of the team normally, but suddenly shows signs of high stress, and then the animals turn on it. I want to do a bit more digging and see if there's actually any scientific reasoning behind this phenomenon of killing one of your own. So just doing a bit of scratching, and obviously delved a little bit into dogs, where I think I've seen this very prevalent. When an animal is injured, another dog is injured, and the dogs attack it or want to kill it. And it seems like it does go across the board with opportunistic predators who exploit vulnerabilities. So in the likes of wild dogs, potentially even lions and leopards, when they see an prey animal with an injury, it immediately sort of exploits. They want to immediately exploit that vulnerability. And when they see an injured or sick, juvenile or otherwise compromised individual, their predatory brain switches over to and tells them to kill. And I think, pulling a piece of string for a cat, it's very evident that there's a very big instinctive drive to pounce, to bite, to kill. And I think they almost can't overcome that, even when it's a family member or a team member. I think we like to put emotion, as always, into a lot of things that we see in nature, and we like to think that they know that the animal is sick or injured, and they want to help it die fast, a mercy killing. But I don't think that it's that, or has that emotion. I think it's just literally a flick of the switch in the brain and the instinct to kill when they see an animal compromised like that. And that's what actually makes them do it behaviorally. What a wonderful line of elephants coming in here. This is a nice big herd. Lovely to see. Lots of youngsters within this group. So Lady Macbeth was saying that research tends to confirm that social animals are more intelligent than solitary ones. Of course, Lady Macbeth, there's been a lot of research on this particular subject, and I think a lot of it is based around the social intelligence hypothesis and the mirror test of animals' ability to possess a more complex cognitive reasoning and self-awareness. But I think there has been even further research that has sort of put this into or called this into question, and this exact test or the mirror test, because if I have to look at it individually, this impala ram's got stuck now while it was having a drink, and it's cornered by this breeding herd. We'll carry on this conversation in a second. We'll just see him try and make his escape. There he goes. Because if we look at leopards, who are more solitary than not, highly intelligent, I would say, in my opinion, which is always humble, it's from my experience, than the likes of impala, for instance. I think there's probably measures that we could use differently to a social animal or gregarious animal versus a solitary one, especially when you look at the likes of cats, because even the smaller ones, the likes of the little African wild cats, etc., I think highly intelligent in the way that they hunt and they ambush. But for us to really measure it is difficult, of course. And we could always say that, we look at elephants and they're highly intelligent. But how much is their brain grown from when they were a baby to when they were an adult, I think is an important aspect to look at. And the percentage growth from born to adult, with that increase in the brain size, I would say equates to the increase or the potential of learning capacity. And I would also think that learning, the ability to learn, would also equate to intelligence, because at the end of the day, the more they can learn, the more IQ they would possess within their environment. So elephants, are able to learn so much and are highly skilled as adults, but not very skilled or much less as a baby. Whereas the likes of an impala, if we compare, able and up on their feet within a few minutes, okay, elephants too, but able to run very fast and jump and keep up with the herd. And I think the learned capacity is way smaller than the likes of an elephant. Maybe that hasn't been required in their evolution, and the shapes of their bodies, etc. It's rather just be fast and get away from the predators, and not be eaten. And it's sort of a limited scope that they do learn. But it's a wide topic. It's a difficult one. Are cows more intelligent than horses? I have this argument on many occasions. And a lot of people would always refer to athleticism equals intelligence, because what an animal can do physically would then equal intelligence, which I think is incorrect, because if a soccer player can kick the ball in from the halfway line and score a magnificent goal, it doesn't make him very clever per se. It doesn't equate. The fastest man on the planet wouldn't necessarily be able to be an astrophysicist. It's completely different. Physicality versus mental. But it's still difficult to measure, and I don't think, in my humble opinion, that the mirror test is conclusive in judging, from self-awareness in terms of then what the animal actually possesses in complex cognitive ability. I don't think it's comparable the more you look at it. So I think you could possibly say that in general, and that's what I always like to use, because I don't think that, nature in its entirety can be boxed. There's always exceptions, but generally, sociable animals would definitely possess a higher ability around social awareness as well as self-awareness, because of the social behavior that they find themselves in. I think it's then a requirement, whereas if you're solitary, it's not necessarily required, but it could still be present if necessary, if you see what I mean. And so it doesn't equate entirely to their intelligence. But yeah, interesting discussion. All right, so I think lovely scenes here with these elephants at Tau, but let's change of place and let's head back to Old Donyo. Where we've got another big old boy, not quite as big as 1 ton, tusk-wise anyway, but he sure is big nonetheless. And as with all the hindgut fermenters, there is a lot of releasing of gas. And that's exactly what you were hearing there. Slowly moving off now. It's like he's had his drink and he's off. But it seems like these big bulls are rolling back through. It was a period of absence, but now they seem to be coming back. A few months ago, we had them lots of these bulls all together just about every day. All right, now that he's moved off and it's gone quiet, no need to stay here. Let's head back, this time to Jamala. With a completely different perspective, as we discussed earlier, makes him look so much smaller from this angle. But don't be fooled. And Spaz Lankov saying, amazing to see the elephants at Old Donyo again. Thanks for the great Elifeld show once more. Very welcome, Spaz. Sanjeev Roy saying, this one is more muscular than 1 ton. He was a bit aged, and that was obviously with that bull at Old Donyo. So yeah, Sanjeev, that's what I'm thinking. Early 50s for 1 ton, and also with the size of his tusks. He would be aging now, and that other individuals seem to be a little bit younger, and as a result in slightly better condition. So, and also saying that Jamala looks more pristine than Tau. I think it's just a very different part of the reserve. This is down in the south, whereas Tau further up in the north, and different landscape as well. That's seemingly sort of along the valley next to a bit of a kloof or small mountain range. Whereas here it's a bit more open and right in the middle of the sort of the acacia thickets. So I'm not sure, more pristine. I think just totally different landscape and environment, or slightly different plants, etc. Obviously, no real waterfowl here, so I think both have their charm, and both have lots of elephants recently as well. See that waterbuck bull on the other side, just having a quiet drink. Lovely little greetings there as that youngster comes in. You can see with the trunks touching each other. Get a good old touch and a smell. So very peaceful, just these few individuals enjoying a drink, a relaxing session at the waterhole. Okay, so while these guys relax, we'll give them a little break, and we'll go have another look back at Tau. Where there's just elephants all round. Always wonderful though, never complaining about having elephants. For me, this is the kind of sightings that you look for at this time of the day. And the elephants come to the waterholes. So whenever I've had day safaris or been out on Escape to Nature or any of the programs that we sort of ran in between the sunrise and sunset safaris, I was always on the lookout for elephants because they're some of the best sightings during that time of the day. Normally coming to water, and they can, have lots of interactions between each other, but always wonderful when they start bathing, mud bathing, and spraying water all over them, or even dust bathing. It's just, for me, the perfect sighting to get through the heat of the day, when later on a lot of the other animals will start becoming active. And without the elephants, I must say, I would have had some pretty boring drives, because they kept us thoroughly entertained. Even in the hottest parts and periods, it was always entertaining. Now look at this big bull is coming right into the middle of this breeding herd. I thought he was going to go and say hello to that one lying down. But it's almost like he's probing as he goes through the group. He's touching and smelling all the females, seeing if there's any receptive or coming into estrus. And the herd seems very receptive to him. There's no real stress, and I think if there was anything untoward happening, these females would be shifting these babies on out of here. But everyone very relaxed, so I think this guy's come in with the right demeanor, and he means no harm. Potentially, maybe there are some females coming into estrus, and so they're allowing him to have a bit more contact. And it's a lovely example of how easy it is to see when you've got a big bull, a big proper bull in amongst the breeding herd. And, the sort of females, you can just see from his sheer size. But then his more rounded head as well. In comparison, we see here, this is all youngsters, males included, obviously, and adult females. So they don't really get much bigger than that. That is the general size of an adult female. And that big bull was the general size of a big bull. So that was a prime example of seeing the difference. And actually watch as this youngster's just kicking the dirt with his foot and then sucking up that dust and throwing it over himself. There he goes. See, I've also noticed now that as we've headed into winter, there's not as much spraying of water on themselves here. They're still doing it at Old Donyo, but I think it's still hot there, being so close to the equator. But more so just throwing of dust on themselves. So almost just trying to put on a bit of an insulating layer that maybe help them against the cold as well. It probably gets rather chilly at night. So not so much water and more so dust at this time of year, it seems. Well, you can see that this is pretty surely all part of one herd as they all start moving off together. And that for me is the easiest way to tell when there's lots of groups that come together. It's when they leave that it's the easiest. So it's almost perfect timing as these elephants are slowly strolling off back into the thickets. Oh, we're coming up to the end of the show. You see the common moor hens here just moving in the water with, it seems like, not a breath of wind. So it's been a wonderful day. I hope you've all enjoyed the show and all the elephants. I surely have. And for me, a very big highlight seeing 1 ton, the big tusker at Old Donyo, all on his own. A very special sighting, spending a bit of time spraying water under himself, having a drink, and it was just very special. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. So thanks for joining us, and of course to the wildlife for being the stars and the whole Wild Earth team. Of course, later on there will be the sunset safari. If I'm not mistaken, I made that mistake yesterday. I think there wasn't one. On Mondays and Tuesdays, there will be one today, I'm sure. So the naturalists will be out and about, and they'll be seeing what they can find. Hopefully lots of spots. So don't go anywhere. Lots of action coming your way. And if you're South African, I hope you've gone to vote. I'll be doing that just after the show. That's it from me for now, folks. We'll see you again soon. Give it horns. Cheers.
Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of On Safari.